It is a truth that we must face, a truth that some of us have been running from for far too long. The fact is, there is a deep longing within every human heart, a yearning for meaning, purpose, and direction. We often look for it in places that promise fulfillment but leave us empty. We search for satisfaction in success, in relationships, in possessions, but those things, though good in their own right, cannot fill the void that is within. And it's at this very moment, when we find ourselves searching, that we must face the question, what are we truly living for? What is it that we desire above all else? The answer to this question lies in the very center of our being, and it is a question that demands an answer. You see, we cannot live our lives without some guiding force. We must have something that shapes our decisions, something that directs our steps. But what is it? Is it our own desires, our own ambitions, or is there something greater that we are called to? Life, as we know, is full of challenges and decisions. From the moment we wake up in the morning until we lay our heads down at night, we make choices. We decide what we will do, where we will go, and how we will live, and yet so many of us go through life as though we are drifting aimlessly on a sea of uncertainty, unsure of which direction to take. But deep within, there is a voice that calls to us, a voice that beckons us to surrender, to submit, to yield, and that voice, if we would listen, is calling us to something greater than ourselves. You see, we were never meant to live our lives alone. We were never meant to navigate this world by our own strength or wisdom. We were created to be led, to be guided by something, or rather someone, far greater than ourselves. And when we are willing to let go of the reins, when we are willing to admit that we do not have all the answers, that is when we can begin to experience the fullness of life that we were meant to live. Now, some may be thinking, but I am already in control of my life. I make my own decisions. I chart my own course. And to that I would say, how is that working for you? How many times have we found ourselves at a crossroads, unsure of which way to go? Too bewildered. How many times have we struggled with decisions that seem to have no clear answer? How many times have we been frustrated, anxious, and even broken because we could not find the peace we long for? The truth is, our own efforts, our own wisdom are not enough to carry us through the challenges of life. We cannot live our lives according to our own rules and expect to find fulfillment. It simply does not work that way. We need guidance. We need direction. We need something, no, someone who is greater than our own understanding. That is why it is essential for us to make the decision to submit every area of our lives to a greater purpose. We must allow this greater purpose to shape our thoughts, our actions, our desires, and our goals. It is not enough to simply acknowledge that there is something greater. We must actively invite that greater purpose to be the center of our life. We must allow it to influence everything we do, every decision we make, every moment of every day. Think about it. When we allow something or someone to have control over our lives, it impacts everything. It shapes how we view the world, how we respond to challenges, how we treat others. The decisions we make are no longer driven by our own selfish desires, but by a greater purpose. And that purpose is the key to living a life that is full and meaningful. For too long, we have allowed the world around us to dictate the course of our lives. We have allowed our circumstances, our fears, our failures, and even our successes to determine who we are and what we do. But we must recognize that there is something far greater than these things that can direct our paths. We need to surrender our wills, our desires, and our hearts to something that transcends the fleeting things of this world. Now, I know that this is not an easy thing to do. It requires sacrifice. It requires humility. It requires us to admit that we are not in control and that we need help. But I tell you, there is no greater freedom than the freedom that comes when we stop fighting and allow our lives to be led by something greater than ourselves. When we submit every area of our lives to this greater purpose, we will find peace that passes all understanding, joy that cannot be taken away, and fulfillment that the world cannot offer. Think about the areas of your life, your family, your career, your relationships, your finances, your health, your emotions, and your dreams. Have you truly surrendered them to a greater purpose? Or have you been holding on to them tightly, trying to control everything yourself? How much peace do you truly have in these areas? How much satisfaction do you experience knowing that you are the one who is ultimately in control. But when we surrender these areas, when we lay them down and trust in something greater, something beautiful happens. We begin to experience peace in our hearts. We begin to see our relationships transform, our careers and our ambitions take on new meaning, our health and our well-being improve, and our dreams, our true God-given dreams, begin to take shape in ways we never imagined possible. It's not about achieving success according to the world's standards. It's not about accumulating wealth or status or popularity. It's not about making our lives look perfect to those around us. No. It's about living in alignment with a greater purpose, one that is rooted in truth, love, and faithfulness. When we surrender our lives to this greater purpose, we begin to live as we were always meant to live, free from the burden of self-reliance and full of the power of a greater calling. But what does it mean to truly surrender every area of our lives? It means letting go of control. It means trusting, not in our own abilities, but in the one who has the power to make all things new. It means making a choice every day to place our faith in something beyond ourselves and to live in a way that reflects that faith. It means opening our hearts and minds to the possibility that there is more to life than what we see with our eyes, and that there is a purpose for our lives that is far greater than our own plans. Surrendering every area of your life requires a deep commitment. It means no longer holding on to the things that have held you back: fear, doubt, pride, anger, bitterness. It means letting go of the things that have kept you in chains and trusting that there is a better way. It means being willing to lay down your plans and your desires for the sake of something greater. But I assure you, when you make that decision, when you take that step of faith, you will find yourself walking in a freedom and joy that you have never known before. You will experience peace that surpasses understanding. Your relationships will flourish. Your life will take on new meaning, and you will find yourself living the life you were always meant to live. The time has come to make a choice. Will you continue living your life according to your own plans, your own desires, and your own wisdom? Or will you surrender every area of your life to something greater, to a purpose that is beyond yourself, a purpose that will bring true fulfillment and peace? This is the challenge before you. This is the invitation. Will you accept it? Will you make the decision today to surrender every area of your life to the greater purpose that is waiting for you? Make that choice today. And as you do, watch as your life is transformed. Watch as your heart is healed. Watch as your world is turned upside down in the most beautiful way. The deep longing for purpose resides within every human being, etched into the core of our hearts. It's not something we can easily escape, nor can we ignore it for long. We often try to feel it with distractions, achievements, possessions, or relationships, but deep down, we know that none of these things can truly satisfy the ache inside. The world tells us that success, wealth, or status will provide the answers. It promises that if we reach a certain point in life, we'll find happiness, peace, and fulfillment. But despite all of these external markers of success, the yearning for something deeper, something more meaningful, still remains. This longing for purpose is universal. It doesn't matter where you come from or how successful you are. You could be at the pinnacle of your career, surrounded by people who love you, and still feel a gnawing emptiness that refuses to be ignored. You could have everything the world says you need to be happy, but there is still something inside that whispers, is this it? Is this all there is? In these quiet moments, the realization comes: we are not meant to live our lives merely seeking success or accumulating things. There's something more, something that transcends our daily routines, our worries, and our fleeting victories. As we search for meaning in our lives, we are often drawn to different pursuits, ambitions that seem to promise fulfillment. Perhaps we chase after a prestigious job title, a large bank account, a perfect relationship, or social approval. We work tirelessly, believing that once we reach these milestones, we will finally feel whole. Yet time and again, the reality sets in that when we achieve these goals, the sense of satisfaction is fleeting. What we thought would bring contentment often leaves us with an even deeper sense of emptiness. It's as though we've run a marathon only to find that the finish line keeps moving further away. We live in a world that constantly pushes us to achieve more, to be more, to have more. The message is clear. If you want to feel significant, you must perform. If you want to matter, you must prove your worth. And so we get caught up in a cycle of striving, never feeling truly fulfilled because we're always focused on the next goal, the next achievement, the next thing that promises to bring us happiness. We work ourselves to exhaustion, believing that success is the answer to everything. But even as we accomplish one thing after another, there's still that voice inside us, that quiet voice that says, is this really it? The pursuit of success is not inherently wrong, but when success becomes the ultimate measure of our worth, we are setting ourselves up for failure. We begin to define ourselves by what we do, what we have, and how others perceive us. Our worth becomes tied to our achievements, and when those achievements don't live up to our expectations, we feel inadequate, unworthy, and lost. And if we're being honest, the higher we climb in the pursuit of success, the more we often feel isolated, alone, and disconnected from the very things that should bring us joy. The more we accumulate, the emptier we feel. It's in these moments of realization that we must confront the truth. There's something deeper inside us that nothing in this world can fill. The possessions, the accolades, the praise from others, all of these are temporary. They are fleeting moments that don't last. We may be surrounded by people, but still feel as though something vital is missing. The world around us may be loud, but our hearts cry out in silence, asking for meaning that goes beyond the superficial. We may try to numb this longing by keeping busy, by filling our time with distractions, by surrounding ourselves with things that momentarily take our minds off the emptiness we feel. We look for purpose in our work, in our relationships, in our social media profiles, in the things that define our external lives. But these things never truly address the core of who we are. They are like a bandage on a wound that runs far deeper. The longing for purpose is not something that can be cured with external things. It is a yearning that must be addressed from the inside out. So where does that leave us? How do we find fulfillment when the world's promises of success and achievement fall short? The answer is not to turn away from ambition or to abandon the things that matter in life. No, the answer lies in understanding that the true fulfillment we seek cannot be found in our own striving. It's not about what we accomplish, how much we earn, or how many people recognize us. It's about connecting with something beyond ourselves, something that can provide the lasting meaning we so desperately need. This longing for purpose is not a weakness. It's a sign that we were created for something more. It's a reminder that there is a greater calling for our lives than what the world offers. Deep within, we know there is more to our existence than just surviving, just getting by, just accumulating. We were made to thrive, to live with purpose, to make a difference, and to experience the fullness of life. This isn't a fleeting desire or a passing thought. It is part of our very DNA, woven into our hearts by a Creator who designed us for a deeper connection. But how do we tap into this purpose? How do we begin to satisfy this deep longing that keeps gnawing at us? The first step is to stop looking outward for answers and start looking inward. The fulfillment we seek doesn't lie in the things we can hold or touch, but in the understanding that we were created for something much greater than ourselves. We must begin to see our lives through a different lens, not through the lens of achievement and success, but through the lens of purpose. This purpose is not something that we can manufacture on our own. It is not something that can be found in the things we accomplish or the people we impress. No, it is a purpose that comes from something deeper, from an understanding that we are part of a bigger story. The longing for meaning that resides in each of us is a whisper from something beyond our understanding, a beckoning to discover our place in a greater plan. There is no greater fulfillment than discovering that your life has meaning beyond what you can see, beyond what you can touch. It is a realization that your worth is not defined by what you have or what you do, but by who you are at your core. And this truth brings peace, a peace that transcends the external noise, a peace that comes from knowing that you're part of something greater than yourself. When you begin to embrace the truth that your life has purpose, that you are not here by accident, and that your existence is part of a greater plan, the longing inside of you begins to be fulfilled. You no longer have to strive for validation from the world around you. You no longer have to chase after fleeting accomplishments that never bring lasting joy. You begin to live from a place of understanding, a place where your life has true meaning, not because of what you can achieve, but because of who you are at your deepest level. This deep, insatiable longing is a gift. It's a gift that calls us to look beyond the fleeting things of this world and find our true purpose. It's a call to stop seeking fulfillment in external things and to turn inward, to discover the deeper meaning that has always been there. And when we respond to that call, when we stop looking for meaning in places that will never satisfy, we begin to experience the true peace and fulfillment that we were always meant to have. So what do we do with this longing? We must acknowledge it. We must stop running from it and instead embrace it as a guide to something greater. We must stop trying to fill the void with temporary fixes and start seeking the deeper meaning that will last. Only then can we experience the peace, joy, and fulfillment that we were created to know. This longing is not something to be feared or ignored. It's something to be celebrated, because it leads us toward the life we were always meant to live. It leads us to a place of peace that surpasses understanding, a place of fulfillment that is not dependent on our circumstances, but on something much greater. It's a longing that, when embraced, leads us to our true purpose. We live in a world that often tells us we must be self-reliant, that the key to success and fulfillment lies in our own hands. From a young age, we are taught to believe that if we want something, we must work for it. We are told to pull ourselves up by our bootstraps, to forge our own path, and to be independent. And while these ideals can be empowering in some respects, there is a fundamental truth that we often overlook in this pursuit. We are not meant to live our lives alone. The reality is, no matter how strong, capable, or intelligent we may be, we cannot navigate life successfully without guidance. Every single one of us has moments where we face crossroads. Decisions that seem impossible, choices that carry weight beyond what we can bear. The fear of making the wrong decision can paralyze us. We look around seeking advice from friends, family, or even the internet. But in the end, the pressure to figure it all out on our own can be overwhelming. In these moments, the weight of self-reliance feels like a burden too heavy to carry. And that's because it is. We were never meant to be the sole architects of our own lives, living with a constant pressure to have all the answers. We were created to need guidance, to need direction, and to have something greater than ourselves leading the way. The desire to navigate life with wisdom, clarity, and peace is not a weakness, but a profound truth about our nature. At the core of our being, we know that there is something far beyond our limited understanding that can help us find the right path, make the right decisions, and live the life we were meant to live. There are moments in life when we feel utterly lost. The world spins around us and we find ourselves standing still, unable to move forward. We try to rely on our own intellect, our experience, and our own sense of strength to push us through. But the more we struggle, the more we realize that no matter how much we try, we can't move forward on our own. It's in these moments of helplessness that we begin to see the cracks in our self-reliance. We begin to understand that there is something we cannot control, something we cannot navigate by our own power. At some point, we all face situations that shake us to our core. A health crisis, a loss of a loved one, a personal failure, or even the uncertainty of the future. These are moments when our own wisdom and ability seem to fall short. No matter how hard we try, we can't make sense of it. The weight of the unknown threatens to crush us. It is in these times of despair and confusion that we most desperately need guidance. We need something greater than ourselves to offer us comfort, direction, and strength. We long for a sense of peace, a light in the darkness that shows us the way forward. There is a deep and intrinsic need in all of us for guidance. This need goes beyond the practical things in life. We seek guidance not just for decision-making, but for meaning. We seek wisdom that will lead us toward fulfillment, toward a life of purpose and peace. But too often we ignore this need. We push forward, determined to figure things out on our own, afraid that relying on anyone or anything outside of ourselves will make us weak or vulnerable. We forget that true strength comes not from our ability to control everything, but from our willingness to seek help, to rely on something greater than ourselves, to allow ourselves to be led. As human beings, we are not equipped to handle every decision and circumstance with perfect clarity and wisdom. There are simply too many variables, too many unknowns, too many situations that stretch us beyond our abilities. No matter how much we think we know, there are always things we cannot predict, things we cannot control. This is where our need for guidance becomes essential. We must humble ourselves and acknowledge that we do not have all the answers. We must acknowledge that we cannot navigate life without help, that we cannot rely solely on our own understanding. The world tells us to trust our instinct, to follow our hearts, to listen to our own voices. But the truth is, our hearts and instincts can often lead us astray. We are emotional creatures, prone to reacting to circumstances with feelings that cloud our judgment. Our hearts can deceive us into believing that what we want is what we need, or that our current path is the right one, even when deep down we know it isn't. Our minds are limited by our own experiences, and our understanding is often shaped by our biases, fears, and desires. We may think we know what is best for us, but there is a greater wisdom that exists beyond our comprehension, a wisdom that is not clouded by our own limitations. True guidance comes from a source that transcends our personal experiences and emotions. It is a guidance that does not change with the winds of circumstance or the fluctuating tides of our feelings. It is a steady, unwavering direction that is rooted in truth, wisdom, and love. It is a wisdom that leads us toward a life of peace, fulfillment, and purpose, no matter what challenges we face. But how do we find this guidance? How do we open ourselves to the wisdom that can truly direct our lives? The first step is to acknowledge that we need it. We must acknowledge that as much as we may think we are in control, we are not. We must be willing to let go of our desire to always be in the driver's seat, to let go of our pride and self-sufficiency, and to open ourselves to the possibility of being led. We must accept that guidance is not something to be feared, but something to be welcomed. It is not a sign of weakness, but of strength. The strength to trust in something greater than ourselves. When we begin to open our hearts to guidance, something beautiful happens. We begin to experience a sense of peace that we cannot explain. The weight of uncertainty begins to lift, and the fog that clouds our minds begins to clear. We start to see the way forward more clearly. We find that the decisions we once struggled with are no longer as difficult, because we are no longer relying solely on our own understanding. We are guided by something greater, something that gives us wisdom beyond our years, something that sees the bigger picture when we can only see the small part in front of us. This guidance doesn't always come in the way we expect. It may not always be a clear, audible voice or a sudden revelation. Sometimes it comes in the form of a quiet whisper in our hearts, a sense of peace that surpasses understanding, or the wisdom that comes through our experiences. It may come through the people we meet, the books we read, or the circumstances that unfold in our lives. But when we open ourselves to receive it, we begin to see the hand of guidance at work in every area of our lives. There is an indescribable peace that comes when we realize that we do not have to carry the weight of life on our own. We do not have to figure everything out by ourselves. We do not have to rely on our own strength and understanding. We have a source of wisdom and strength that is greater than anything we could ever imagine. And that source is always available to us, ready to guide us through every moment of our lives. In moments of doubt, fear, or confusion, we can turn to this source of guidance, knowing that we do not have to face the challenges of life alone. We can rest in the peace that comes from knowing that we are being led, that there is a path for us, and that we do not have to walk it by ourselves. This guidance is not just for the big decisions in life. It is for every moment, every choice, every step along the way. When we allow ourselves to be led, when we surrender our need for control and open our hearts to this higher guidance, we begin to experience the life we were meant to live, a life of peace, clarity, and purpose. The weight of self-reliance begins to lift, and we find that we are walking in a wisdom and understanding that transcends our own ability. We no longer have to fight for control. We no longer have to struggle with uncertainty. We can trust in the guidance that is always available to us, knowing that it will lead us in the right direction, no matter what the future holds. In the end, the greatest gift we can give ourselves is the gift of surrender. The surrender to something greater, something wiser, and something more loving than ourselves. It is in this surrender that we find true freedom. The freedom to live a life led by wisdom, peace, and purpose. And when we allow ourselves to be guided, we discover a life that is not only full of meaning, but full of hope, joy, and fulfillment. There are few things in life more powerful than the act of surrender. We often think of surrender as a sign of weakness, of giving up, of allowing ourselves to be defeated. But in truth, surrender is not about losing or giving in. It is about letting go of control and choosing to trust. It is about recognizing that we do not have all the answers. And it is about accepting that we are not meant to bear the weight of life's challenges on our own. True peace comes not from fighting against life's currents, but from learning how to float with them, trusting that we are being carried to where we are meant to go. At some point in all our lives, we come to a crossroads, a moment where we must decide whether to continue pushing against the tide or to let go and allow ourselves to be guided. We try to control every aspect of our existence, our careers, our relationships, our health, and even our happiness. We believe that if we just work hard enough, if we just make the right decisions, we can craft the perfect life for ourselves. But the harder we try, the more we find ourselves exhausted and overwhelmed. We begin to realize that the world is not as predictable as we thought. And no matter how much effort we put into controlling every detail, there are forces beyond our control that cannot be manipulated. We feel the weight of that reality, and it's a heavy burden to carry. The truth is, no matter how much we try to control our lives, we cannot control everything. We can plan and prepare, but there are always unforeseen circumstances that change everything in an instant. A health crisis, a financial setback, the sudden loss of a loved one. These are the moments that shake us to the core and remind us of how little control we actually have. And yet in these moments of crisis, we are forced to face the reality that we cannot navigate life's storms alone. No matter how strong we are, no matter how much we try to hold it all together, there will always be times when we are powerless. This is where the idea of surrender becomes so crucial. Surrender is not about giving up. It's about recognizing that there is something bigger than ourselves at work in the world. It's about acknowledging that we cannot carry the weight of the world on our shoulders, and we do not have to. Surrender is about opening our hearts and minds to the possibility that there is a plan for our lives, a plan that we cannot always see or understand, but one that will ultimately lead us to peace, joy, and fulfillment. The decision to surrender is not easy. It requires a deep sense of humility and trust. When we surrender, we are acknowledging that we do not have control, and that is a terrifying thought. We are taught from a young age that success comes from hard work and self-reliance, and that we must always be in control of our destiny. To surrender feels like admitting defeat, like giving up on the dreams and ambitions we have worked so hard to achieve. But in reality, surrender is not a sign of defeat. It is an act of faith. Surrender requires us to trust in something bigger than ourselves. It requires us to let go of our need for certainty and control, and to trust that we are being guided towards something greater than we can understand. When we finally let go, we open ourselves up to a new kind of freedom. The freedom that comes with the knowledge that we are not alone in this journey. We no longer have to carry the weight of the world on our shoulders. We no longer have to figure everything out by ourselves. We can release our grip on the illusion of control and rest in the assurance that we are being guided every step of the way. The beauty of surrender is that it brings us peace. When we try to control everything, we are constantly on edge, always worried about what could go wrong. But when we surrender, we release that anxiety. We stop trying to predict every outcome, and instead we trust that whatever happens will ultimately be for our good. Surrender doesn't mean giving up on our dreams or aspirations. It means recognizing that there is a higher purpose and a greater plan that will lead us to where we need to be. We begin to understand that even when things don't go according to our own plans, there is a reason behind it. A reason we may not see at the moment, but one that will make sense in time. Surrender doesn't happen all at once. It's a process, a gradual letting go. At first, it may feel like a loss of control, like giving up on everything we've worked for. But as we continue on this journey, we begin to experience a deep sense of peace. We realize that we don't have to have all the answers. We realize that it's okay to not know what the future holds. We realize that we are not alone, and that we can trust in the path that is being laid out for us. The more we surrender, the more we are able to embrace life as it comes, with all of its challenges and uncertainties. This act of surrender allows us to grow in ways we never imagined. When we let go of our need for control, we free ourselves from the fear and stress that come from trying to manage every detail. We begin to experience a sense of freedom that comes from living in the present moment. without constantly worrying about what comes next. We no longer feel like we have to be in charge of everything, and that is incredibly liberating. We learn to trust the process of life, knowing that each moment, whether good or bad, is a part of a larger plan that is shaping us into the people we are meant to be. Surrender also opens the door to a deeper connection with others. When we release our need to control everything, we become more open and vulnerable. We stop putting up walls to protect ourselves and allow ourselves to be more fully present in our relationships. We stop trying to prove ourselves and start simply being ourselves without fear of judgment or rejection. This vulnerability creates space for genuine connection and intimacy. We begin to experience the love and support of those around us in a way that would not have been possible if we had continued to hold on to our need for control. The act of surrender is not just about letting go of our personal ambitions. It's also about surrendering our will to a higher purpose. It's about recognizing that we are part of something bigger than ourselves, something that is far beyond our understanding. We may not always know why things happen the way they do, but when we surrender, we trust that there is a reason for it. We trust that in the grand scheme of things, everything is unfolding exactly as it should. This trust brings a sense of peace that allows us to weather even the most difficult storms. We no longer have to worry about every little thing because we know that we are being guided by a force much greater than ourselves. The more we surrender, the more we come to understand the importance of living in alignment with this greater purpose. We start to see that our lives are not just about achieving personal success or accumulating material wealth. Our lives are about something much deeper, something that transcends the self. We begin to live for a higher cause, one that brings us fulfillment and joy beyond anything we could have imagined. We stop chasing after things that don't matter and start focusing on the things that truly bring us peace and purpose. As we learn to surrender, we also become more compassionate and empathetic toward others. We realize that everyone is on their own journey and that they too are learning to navigate life's challenges. We no longer judge others for their struggles because we recognize that we too have our own difficulties to face. Surrender teaches us humility. It teaches us to recognize that we are all flawed, all imperfect, and all in need of grace. It reminds us that life is not about being perfect, but about learning, growing, and becoming the best version of ourselves. In the end, surrender is not about giving up. It's about letting go of the illusion of control and trusting in something greater. It is about accepting that we do not have to do this alone, and that we are being guided every step of the way. The peace that comes from surrender is not a peace that comes from avoiding life's difficulties. It is a peace that comes from trusting in the process, from knowing that we are not alone, and from believing that everything happens for a reason. Surrender opens the door to a life of freedom, peace, and purpose. It is the key to living a life that is not driven by fear or anxiety, but by trust, love, and faith. There are times in life when we find ourselves standing at a crossroads, looking down two paths, both uncertain. The weight of the decision feels heavy, like the whole world is on our shoulders. We want to make the right choice, but sometimes it's not immediately clear which direction to take. The desire to take control and solve the problem on our own is natural, but it's often in these very moments of uncertainty that we are most vulnerable. We want to move forward, to push through, but at the same time we feel as though we're standing still, paralyzed by the fear of making the wrong choice. These moments of doubt, confusion, and fear are more than just fleeting thoughts. They can define our lives if we let them. Every decision, every action can feel like it's laden with consequences. What if I choose the wrong career? What if I lose everything? What if I trust the wrong person? These what-ifs are powerful, and they have the ability to haunt us, to keep us from moving forward in the way we're meant to. It's easy to believe that the weight of these decisions is entirely ours to bear. The pressure of finding the right answer, the right path, can be overwhelming. But the truth is, we don't have to carry this burden alone. In these moments of vulnerability, we often forget the most powerful truth of all. We do not have to navigate life's difficulties on our own. We were never meant to. We were never meant to face every challenge, every hardship, and every crossroads in isolation. There is a greater source of wisdom, guidance, and strength that is available to us waiting for us to reach out and trust in it. It's easy to forget that we don't have to solve everything ourselves. The desire to have all the answers and control the outcomes is deeply ingrained in us. And yet, it's in letting go of this need for control that we find the freedom to move forward. There's a deep longing within all of us for clarity, for direction, for a sense of purpose. We all want to know that our lives matter, that our decisions count for something. But how many times have we found ourselves in situations where the future feels uncertain, where our decisions don't seem to have clear answers, where we're just not sure which way to go? We want to know that we're on the right path, that the choices we're making today will lead us to the future we dream of. But the future is unknown, and it's precisely in the unknown that our greatest growth lies. When we let go of the need to control every aspect of our lives, we open ourselves up to the possibility of something greater. There's a freedom in releasing our grip on outcomes, in acknowledging that we do not have all the answers. It's a humbling experience, but it's also one of the most liberating things we can do. By letting go, we stop living in constant anxiety over what might go wrong. We stop worrying about the future, and instead we trust that the right steps will unfold before us in time. We stop trying to force our lives into a mold of perfection and control, and we open ourselves to the possibility of true transformation. What would happen if we allowed ourselves to trust the process of life? What if we believed that the answers would come, even if they didn't come immediately, and that we didn't have to have everything figured out? What if we could sit with uncertainty without the overwhelming pressure to control it? What if we embraced the fact that life is a journey and the path isn't always straight and clear? The key to finding peace in this uncertainty lies in accepting that we cannot control everything. The more we try to control every detail, the more anxious and overwhelmed we become. The more we try to predict every outcome, the more frustrated we become when things don't go the way we expect. Surrendering to the flow of life doesn't mean that we stop trying or that we stop making choices. It simply means that we trust in the bigger picture even when we can't see it. It means that we trust that the right answers will reveal themselves, even if they don't come as quickly as we'd like. We can stop demanding certainty and start embracing the mystery of life, knowing that over time we will gain the clarity we need. We can begin to trust that no matter what happens, we will be okay, and we will be guided through whatever lies ahead. This process of trusting, of letting go, of choosing to walk in faith rather than fear is not always easy. The desire for control is powerful, and it often feels safer to hold tightly to what we think we know. But holding on too tightly prevents us from moving forward. It keeps us stuck, bogged down by worry and anxiety, unable to move in the direction that is best for us. When we allow ourselves to release control, we create the space for something better to come into our lives. We create the space for trust, for growth, for peace. There is something deeply powerful in trusting the process. When we stop fighting, stop trying to make everything fit into our narrow vision of how life should be, we start to see things in a new light. We begin to recognize the subtle nudges, the quiet whispers, the opportunities that come our way when we aren't desperately trying to control everything. In moments of stillness, we find guidance. In moments of surrender, we find strength. And in moments of trust, we find peace. This doesn't mean that the journey will be without challenges or struggles. Life is full of moments that test our faith, that push us to our limits. There will be times when we feel lost, when we question whether we are on the right path, when we wonder if we've made the wrong choice. But it's in these moments of doubt that we must remind ourselves of the truth. We are not alone in this journey. There is a presence, a wisdom, a source of strength that is greater than our understanding, guiding us every step of the way. Even when we don't have the answers, even when the road ahead seems uncertain, we can take comfort in knowing that we are being led, that the path will unfold as it should. The beauty of trusting the process is that it frees us from the burden of needing to know everything. It frees us from the constant pressure of worrying about what comes next. It allows us to live more fully in the present, to appreciate each moment, knowing that the future will reveal itself when the time is right. Trusting the process means that we no longer have to live in fear of making the wrong choice, because we understand that every step, even the ones that feel uncertain or difficult, is part of a larger plan. Every challenge, every setback, every joy and heartbreak is leading us somewhere. We don't always know where, but we can trust that we are moving in the right direction. In the quiet moments, when we choose to surrender, to let go, to trust, we begin to feel a sense of peace that we can't quite explain. It's not the absence of challenges, but the quiet knowing that no matter what comes our way, we are not alone in this journey. We are being guided step by step toward the life we are meant to live. It's in this trust, this surrender, that we find the courage to face the unknown, to step into the future without fear, and to embrace the journey with an open heart. So often, we get caught up in the idea that we must have everything figured out, that we must always be in control. We measure our success by our ability to make the right decisions, to predict the future, and to avoid mistakes. But the truth is, life doesn't work that way. Life is messy, unpredictable, and full of surprises. The only thing we can truly control is how we respond to it. Will we choose to hold tightly to the illusion of control, or will we choose to trust in something greater, to release our grip and allow ourselves to be led? Trusting the process is not about giving up. It's about surrendering to the journey. It's about letting go of the need to know what's next and choosing to trust that no matter what, we will be okay. It's about finding peace in the uncertainty and allowing ourselves to grow and evolve with each step we take. When we choose trust over fear, surrender over control, we open ourselves to a world of possibilities, a world where anything can happen, and it's all part of the beautiful unfolding journey of life. Sometimes the most powerful force in our lives is not what we can see, touch, or understand, but rather what we can feel deep within our hearts. It's an invisible force, a quiet voice within us that speaks louder than the chaos around us. In the rush of daily life, amidst the noise of our thoughts, the demands of work, and the constant push to achieve more, we can easily forget this inner truth, the truth that our lives are shaped by something greater than ourselves, something beyond the daily grind, beyond the struggles, beyond the challenges that seem to threaten our peace. It's a truth that asks us to look beyond the surface, to dig deeper into our hearts, to uncover the wellspring of strength that lies dormant within us. We live in a world that constantly demands more of us, a world that tells us we must be more, do more, and have more. The pressures of this world can sometimes feel suffocating, as though we are being pulled in 1,000 different directions. But in the midst of it all, there is a stillness within us, a quiet voice that beckons us to stop, to pause, and to listen. It calls us to reconnect with our true selves, to remember that we are not defined by the noise of the world or by the expectations placed upon us. We are more than what we do. We are more than what we have. We are more than the titles we hold or the roles we play. The world tells us that our value is found in what we achieve, in how much we can accomplish, in how successful we appear to others. But there is another voice, a voice that calls us to something deeper, something more meaningful. This voice reminds us that our true worth is not found in what we do, but in who we are. It reminds us that we are worthy of love, worthy of peace, worthy of joy, simply because we exist. It is easy to forget this in the face of failure, rejection, or disappointment. It's easy to think that if we don't measure up to the standards set by society or by ourselves, we have no value. But the truth is that our value is not defined by our accomplishments or failure. Our value is inherent. It is woven into the very fabric of our being. We are not our mistakes. We are not our failures. And we are not our weaknesses. We are not the sum of our struggles, nor are we the product of the harsh words others have spoken over us. We are not the image we see in the mirror or the persona we present to the world. We are something far greater than all of these things. Our worth is not determined by the world's standards, but by something far more profound. There is a force within us that is greater than our circumstances, greater than the challenges we face. It is a strength that is found deep within, a strength that carries us through the hardest moments, a strength that is not ours alone, but a strength that is rooted in something greater than ourselves. This force, this strength, is not something we can always see or touch, but we can feel it when we quiet our minds, when we stop fighting against the current of life and allow ourselves to flow with it. It is the voice of hope that whispers in the darkest moments, the voice of courage that rises within us when we feel weak, and the voice of love that reminds us that we are not alone. It is the voice of grace that calls us to forgive ourselves, to heal from our wounds, and to rise again when we fall. It is the voice of peace that calms our anxious hearts and gives us the courage to move forward, even when the road ahead seems uncertain. But how often do we ignore this voice? How often do we silence it with the noise of our own doubts, fears, and insecurities? How often do we let the world's demands drown out the whispers of truth that are trying to guide us in a world that values achievement above all else? It is easy to forget the quiet power of surrender, the power of trust, and the power of knowing that we do not have to have everything figured out. It is easy to believe that we are defined by our failures, that we are defined by the mistakes we've made, or that we are defined by how much we accomplish. But when we define ourselves by these things, we lose sight of the greater truth. There is a force within us that knows who we are, that knows our deepest desires and our truest nature. This force does not measure us by our success or failure. It measures us by our willingness to be open, to be vulnerable, to trust in something greater than ourselves. It is in the moments of surrender, in the moments when we let go of our need to control, that we reconnect with this deeper part of ourselves. And when we reconnect with this deeper part, we discover a strength that we never knew existed. It is a strength that is not dependent on our circumstances, not dependent on how well we are performing or how much we are achieving. It is a strength that is inherent within us, a strength that flows from the deepest parts of our souls. We must learn to listen to this voice, to trust in it, and to follow its guidance. It will not always lead us down a straight path, and it will not always give us the answers we want when we want them. But it will lead us to a place of peace, a place of clarity, and a place of purpose. The more we listen to this voice, the more we will find that we are capable of things we never thought possible. We will find that we are capable of overcoming challenges we thought insurmountable. We will find that we are capable of rising from the ashes, of transforming our pain into strength, and of living a life that is true to who we are. The journey to discovering this strength is not always easy. There will be times when we feel lost, when we wonder if we are on the right path, when we doubt whether we have what it takes to succeed. But in those moments of doubt, we must remember that we are not alone. We must remember that there is a force within us that is guiding us, that is leading us towards something greater than we can see. The key is to trust this force, to trust that it is always there even when we don't feel it. Trust that it will never leave us, that it will never fail us, and that it will always lead us toward the best possible version of ourselves. We are all capable of extraordinary things, not because of our own strength or abilities, but because of the strength that is available to us when we choose to trust in it. When we stop trying to control every aspect of our lives and start trusting the process, we open ourselves to a life of limitless potential. When we let go of our fears, our doubts, and our insecurities, we step into the fullness of who we were meant to be. There will be moments when we fail, when we stumble, and when we fall. But failure is not the end. It is simply a part of the journey, a part of the growth process. In those moments, we must remember that our worth is not defined by our mistakes, and that we have the ability to rise again. We must remember that every setback is an opportunity to grow, to learn, and to become stronger. We must remember that it is in our struggles that we find our true strength. And so we must trust the process of life even when it is difficult, even when it feels like we are moving backward instead of forward. We must trust that every step we take, no matter how small or insignificant it may seem, is leading us towards something greater. We must trust that even when we cannot see the path ahead. There is a purpose to the journey. There is a plan for our lives, a plan that is far greater than we can imagine. And when we trust that plan, when we surrender to the process, we will find peace, joy, and fulfillment beyond our wildest dreams. In the end, we are all on this journey together, learning, growing, and discovering the depths of our own strength. And no matter where we are on that journey, no matter what we face, we must remember that we are not alone. There is a force within us, a strength greater than ourselves, that is guiding us every step of the way. When we trust that strength, when we listen to that voice, We will find the courage to face whatever comes our way. And we will find the peace that comes from knowing that no matter what happens, we are exactly where we are meant to be.